Let's talk about inequality while I show you around Wrocław.
Okay, let's go.
I think that an employee is happy to work for a tenth of the salary of a CEO. Those are differences that exist in social, and are called social stratification, but they not only exist between people but also within countries.
So what are wealth stratifications? We can have wealth stratification within a society, for example, the Indian caste systems or the medieval feudal system, but as I say, there are even within countries different level of stratification. The old school and politically correct way, we used to say first, second and third world countries. And the third world countries, sometimes they were even referred as developing. Well, it's even a weirder definition because every country is developing. The stratification of first, and second and third world traces back to the Cold War, when Western policymakers start classifying the Western blocs as the first world, the Soviet Union as a second world, and all the rest together put together the third world. After the Cold War ended, the category second world countries became null and void, but somehow the terms first world and third world stuck around. The first world keeping meant to be like the richest country, and the third world countries were those we were considered poor, which is kind of inaccurate because generally we tend to see of the global south, including countries like Namibia, South Africa, which are actually kind of rich, as a third world country. Nowadays, sociologists sort countries into groups based on their specific economic productivity. So we talk about gross domestic product, GDP, and we say high-income country, middle-income country, and low-income country per capita. But this doesn't explain why we have a stratification, because for much of the history of the humankind, the Earth was more or less poor. We were kind of all poor. We were all third-world countries. So how the evolution got something kind of way in not aligning every country at the same level? Now, if for a second we forgot criticism to bad governments, which are actually something that it's mostly debated nowadays or in the all current theories, we are in literature we will find two theories: the modernization theory and the dependence theory. The modernization theory stems from the structural functional school, the same that claims that there are inequalities in our societies because we need them to function, because you need the boss, and you need someone middle-level manager, and you need someone doing just very little job for a small salary. In this view, this kind of inequality is a function of technological and cultural difference, and the development portrayed as a kind of linear path where all nations could theoretically follow, all of them. It's just a more like an effect of, I would say, if they are lazy or not. In Bourdieu terms, this theory assumes that all nations can acquire the necessary forms of economical, cultural and social capital as they were universally available of kind of more or less the same resources. Modernization theory highlights historical events behind why the Western has been faster in this kind of linear path that everybody can access. The discovery of the Americas and following all the goods that could be taken from those countries and brought to the increasing, bringing new wealth to Europe, and the Industrial Revolution, which started, of course, in UK with all the steam engines, mass production, and all these things. Initially benefiting only the elite, industrialization eventually raised the general living standards for more or less everybody. Society that adopted this kind of shift accumulated some institutional and technological capital, reinforcing their dominant position locally but also around the world. Substantially, the modernization theory says that any countries can follow this path of modernization, which and just more a matter if they are lazy or not. More recently, the American economist Walter Rostow described, in fact, 4 stages of development: the traditional society, where we are just family; the kind of takeoff, where there start being some kind of innovation and trade; the technological maturity, when we have a certain level of education, democracy; and finally, the mass consumption, which is literally what we meant with Industrial Revolution. Indeed, this model kind of masks all the possible historical and political conditions, plus they depict, as I say, the low-income country as kind of lazy. Why are they not doing that? Why? The other theory I was saying that is the most common in literature, at least at the basic literature, is the dependence theory. The dependence theory is kind of the other side of the modernization theory. In fact, it says that practically some countries are richer because they exploited other countries. Indeed, this is maybe is a bit more extreme point of view, but it has been shown that to have some kind of inequality, generally it means to be some kind of exploitation. You have people trying to make a smaller, larger margin, or maybe not respecting some rules, or maybe trying to use a lower quality material to produce to make more money, and in this introduce some exploitation. However, this the dependence theory is a bit more extreme. It literally points to the fact that colonization is the fault of everything. Undoubtedly, colonialism has left some serious scars. Like if you go to Ghana, Nigeria, wherever, you can still see the fort where people were put as a slave and then they were stolen, and as Bob Marley say, brought to America, like Buffalo Soldier. So we passing through the doors of no return. However, the colonialism doesn't explain why some countries are still stuck in the group of low-income country and other changed. Indeed, we have countries that have been colonies, like Singapore, or even the US itself was a colony, that have been exploited financially, economically, and politically. So the truth is probably that both theories are over-simplistic, and of course they both don't take into account all the complexity of governments, policies, and other sort of inequality that may have appeared. Historically, we used to say that education is the equalizer that neutralizes inequality, and that fixed all whatever inequality has been introduced by either modernization, dependency, or whatever. But this is not true, because, as you say, it's not true that if you simply go to take a nice degree, then you will find a job and you will rise financially, because we are not all the same. So some people, if you are from a rich background, probably you will be followed more during your study, and also when you start applying for jobs and so on, you will, even if you are not cheating, but your parents will kind of address you where to find a possibility that is matching your degree. While maybe if you are spending your time from working while studying and all these things, you don't have time to optimize this. Or another example is the fact that in all the Ivy Leagues, it's been shown that the people attending Ivy Leagues tend to be son and daughter of someone else who has been attending the, even if not the same university in Ivy League and the same level of university. So there is not kind of true that education is the big equalizer. Now we have the new equalizer, assuming it's true, which is AI with all this large language model, foundation models, or all these things that have the promise of fixing everything. Likewise, for education, AI systems are generally trained and based on local data. So we have the risk of reproducing and even deepening inequalities with institutions and themselves benefiting from existing hierarchies. Moreover, there is also the risk that AI may devaluate traditional and marginalized cultural forms, prioritizing dominant norms embedded in data. What I mean is that if you ask specific questions, maybe those questions, the answer will be trained and modeled to help someone in a specific background or in a specific geographic location. Maybe they are not generalizable to everybody. And lastly, of course, technology is always in the hand of the elite. So they might arrange things in a way to improve their own productivity, but not necessarily to reduce inequality, but actually they might even increase inequality. In short, while AI has the potential to support the efforts toward greater social equity, it cannot solve inequality on its own. It must be intentionally designed to be inclusive and more integrated in a broader societal way to different countries, different status also, in a way to redistributing all forms of capitals, economic, cultural and social. Without these, AI will be more like a minor reinforcement of previous inequality rather than dismantle them.